Hello and welcome back everyone. It's that time of the week where I talk about the recent chapter of The Promised Neverland. I didn't really review last week's chapter, so I might mix some of that week into this week as well, because why not, right? Anyway, let's just talk about these chapters, shall we? That is chapter 52 and 53. So the kids finally made it to their destination where they think they will meet up with Minerva at long last, but in fact they end up at a location which seems very out of place. There's nothing to be seen as far as the eye can reach, but after being clever and shit, they figure out that it's not just about getting to the coordinates, but they also need to take it a step further and find something more. Because obviously Minerva is not going to be waiting for them in the middle of fucking nowhere. There is something that was missing and they figure it out in their own time, and once they actually make it down into this shelter, as it's called, you can tell that everyone are feeling some kind of suspense. They don't really know what to expect from this encounter or if they'll even meet Minerva. I mean, they hope so, of course, since that's kind of the goal of this whole journey, but the one person that they find is not quite what they expected, because we see the moment that this dude comes into frame that everyone is quite disappointed or shocked at this person's appearance. He's not quite what they were hoping for, and honestly I can't blame them. I mean, look at the fucking guy. He doesn't really look like Minerva material, does he? I don't think so anyway. And then in chapter 53 we actually get some more insight on this situation that they are in, but it's not really what the kids wanted to hear, because the guy openly tells them, you know, that he is not Minerva, and that alone of course kind of fucks with everyone's heads, because they wanted to meet Minerva and they expected that at these coordinates Minerva would be waiting for them, but what they actually get is another guy who is in his 20s, I'd say, based on that he mentioned being down at the shelter for about 13 years. And this guy is very much like Emma and the others, an escapee of a plantation, although not the same plantation. I believe he called his plantation the Glory Bell, and we don't really know anything about that plantation whatsoever, other than the difference in tags, because we see how he is tagged in the abdomen area with a series of letters instead of a series of digits on the neck. So it may not be the same kind of plantation. I mean, we know that the Gracefield plantation, or whatever it's called, produces top quality stuff, so this plantation could simply be of the same type except lower quality, so to speak, because he and the people he escaped with clearly were clever enough to realize the situation and make it out there before it was too late, and there's no way that he was ever part of one of those mass production plantations that Sung Yu mentioned. He must have been somewhere in between, I'd say. Of course, this guy is nothing like Emma and the others as far as personality and manners go, because he is, well, kind of fucked up in the head in a way, like how he acts and the way he treats people. He thinks people are a burden, and that is something that I picked up on, because it's kind of how Ray was thinking about everyone else at first. He didn't want to bring too many people with him since that could compromise their escape, and this new older dude mentioned that everyone else was dead, so he's obviously taking that a bit further now. We don't really know if he was responsible for the deaths or if they died during the escape, because he mentioned that no one had been biting the dust yet, which kind of suggests that he was in fact not responsible, but at the same time he did pull a fucking gun on Emma, which I think is a big red flag that he's definitely trouble. Even if he's just the type of guy who wants to be left alone, it seems as if there's a lot more to it than that. He doesn't seem to have any form of compassion when it comes to everyone. He just wants them to leave, and if they do not leave, he will kill them. At least that's what he's saying. So that's why I'm kinda unsure if he's had a part in his own comrades' deaths or not. He seems very unstable in that regard, which, you know, I think everyone picked up on really. He's basically gone a bit cray-cray over the years, and I can't blame him. He's been inside of that shelter for like 13 years all alone, and everyone knows that solitude will eventually mess with your head. I believe that is what we're currently seeing. I could be wrong, of course. As I said, I'm not entirely sure about the whole situation, but from what we've seen, it looks like a scenario of him just wanting to stay alive, not really giving a crap about anyone else as long as his life is intact. What's kind of interesting though about him is that he seems to know about Emma and the others down to the detail, which I think is something we should keep in mind because it might be important. I mean, there are monitors and all kinds of things down at the shelter, so I wonder if the demons have some kind of broadcasting of escaped goods, and if that's the case, he may have been listening in on that. Except if that was the case, I don't see why it would be broadcasted in human language, since we know from Music and Sang Yu that demons do in fact have their own language, so it would be more likely that they would broadcast it in whatever language that is. And if that is the case, then I wonder how he could know about their escape to such fine detail. He was able to point out how many days ago it was, which in itself explains that there is information being fed to this station, so I think he may be hiding some things. Maybe he's even just testing the kids right now, because he could simply be putting on an act to see just how these kids will react to things like this. He could be an associate of Minerva for all we know, because we haven't gotten his name yet, which is another thing to keep in mind. He could even be Minerva trying to plague these kids into thinking he's just some older escapee. He could be who he says he is, but he could also be someone entirely different. I just found the fact that he knew so much about them a bit alarming, but that's just another thing about this series that is so fascinating. You can't really predict what's going to be happening in the next chapter, it's so unpredictable, but at the same time, when you do learn of the truth, it can be so darn obvious that you almost want to hit yourself on the head for not thinking about it. Well, anyway, with that said, I'll be ending this video here. Let me know what you think down below in the comments, and as always, if you did, please like this video if you enjoyed, and subscribe if you're new to my channel. This has been your favorite host, Perm, and I'll see you soon.